The Mini Pekka is one of the most loved cards in Clash Royale. That iconic Pancake's voice lines and his goofy little demeanor made him an instant fan favorite. He was simple, he was fun, and he never needed anything more than a big sword and 4 elixir to feel perfect. But all that changed with the introduction of heroes. Suddenly, Mini Pekka wasn't just the cute little tank killer anymore, he became an absolute menace on both defense and attack. The charm started fading, and the card that used to feel fair and lovable turned into something people dreaded seeing. The Mini Pekka has been in Clash Royale since the very beginning. Over 10 years now. 10 years. I mean, come on, let that sink in for a second. Anyway, he was introduced as a cheaper answer to big, tanky troops like the Giant and Giant Skeleton. You didn't always have the elixir to drop a full Pekka, so the Mini Pekka filled that role perfectly. Same idea, way less expensive. Funnily enough though, before the game officially launched, he was actually meant to be an epic card instead of a rare. But that got changed last minute. In the first few weeks of the game's life, his usage was pretty low. He started around 2% and slowly climbed to 4%, and after just over a month, he was sitting at about 14% usage in top ladder. And that sounds impressive, but you gotta remember how small the game was back then. There were way fewer cards, no champions, no evolutions, not even legendaries yet, so percentages were kind of inflated. Still, the Mini Pekka was an alright card for the time. He did a solid job against Hog Rider and Giant, which were 2 of the most common win conditions. The problem was, well, everything else. Tombstone, Goblins, and Barbarians were everywhere, and they absolutely bullied him. And despite this, players had begun to realize how much value he could bring. Dropping a Mini Pekka behind a Giant became a very scary combo. Half the time he'd survive with only a little bit of HP, sneaking in a single swing. And that one hit was all it took sometimes to flip a game. But the real explosion came a few months later in May and June of 2016. Mini Pekka shot all the way up to a 41% usage rate at the top of the ladder, which was insane for the time. A huge reason for that was the rise of the famous Hog 2.9 trifecta deck. This deck was one of the first true meta Hog Rider Valkyrie Musketeer decks, backed up by their elixir collector that only cost 5 elixir back then. The deck was everywhere, and Mini Pekka just happened to be one of the best answers to it. He could shut down a hog push, delete a Valkyrie, and still threaten a counterattack on the other side. If you didn't distract him, your entire offense could disappear in seconds. You'll see it in old gameplay, players constantly throwing skeletons or ice spirit just to pull him away so the hog could sneak through. Back then, the meta was basically built around a few untouchable cards. Zap was in almost every deck, to the point where people joked you were really only choosing 7 cards. Poison became the perfect partner spell for dealing with bigger pushes, and together they controlled almost every interaction. That's where Mini Pekka and Guards really shined. Both were strong defensive options that didn't just disappear to splashing spells as easily. Elixir Collector was still only 5 elixirs, so pumping up and forcing your opponent to make the first move was incredibly common. On top of that, Miner and Princess were everywhere, with Miner punishing pumps and splitting defenses, while Princess thrived in a meta that rarely ran arrows or log due to the Zap and Poison being everywhere. So yeah, that Zap sat at a 98% usage rate, and Poison at a 77% usage rate. This was the time that the Mini Pekka truly shined and outperformed literally every other defensive unit. And then there was the infamous Rage glitch. But before I show you this crazy glitch, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. It has been a bit rough since the level 16 update and the massive drop in players, so your support means the world to me and I appreciate it. For a while, Mini Pekka could hit targets from distances that made absolutely no sense. You'd see him standing what looked like 3 tiles away, not even swinging yet, and then suddenly the Hog Rider would just lose half of his health. People slowed clips down frame by frame, trying to figure out what was happening. It felt unfair, but at the same time, kinda hilarious. Around this time, the community completely fell in love with him. One of my favorite moments from that year was during the Arena Battles event with the North American Open players. They did a ridiculous Mini Pekka challenge where every time you heard the ding sound, you had to eat a pancake. And if you actually deployed a Mini Pekka, someone would feed you one on the spot. It was stupid, chaotic, and perfectly on brand for the character.
Alright, it looks like we're getting into the game right here.
It'll be interesting to see if they take advantage of the mini Pekka eat a pancake rule.
And there's the bowler. I don't think that musketeer is really going to be able to do much. Oh, look at that.
Wow,
lightning.
what a lightning.
Bowler and Giant still pushing down forward, but we have the Ice Golem in the right-hand side trying to defend, but the Bowler is just...
In the left lane of Colton's, behind an Ice Golem. And oh man, they are just getting pancakes shoved in their mouth while they play. This has got to be tough for your focus. Mini Pekkas are dueling at the river as tensions rise in this game. Mini Pekkas are coming out back and forth on both sides. They must be stuffed full of pancakes right now.
I love it. Now we're seeing so many Mini Pekkas. He has so many pancakes shoved into his mouth. It's actually affecting the game.
This could be the end of the game right here. The Tornado pulls the Giant and Bowler together. The Giant punches the tower and Top Notch wins in overtime.
Anyway, the mini Pekka was at its absolute peak, the most used troop in the entire game, and reliable at shutting down big pushes that would get turned into scary counterattacks. But every rise has a fall, and the mini Pekka is no different. Over the next few weeks, the mini Pekka dropped in usage rate, still sitting very high at usage rates like 60 and 50%, but with people getting used to dealing with mini Pekka and altering their decks slightly, the mini Pekka became less effective in certain matchups. However, the mini Pekka was by no means gone, at least not yet. If we fast forward a few weeks, we can see it go downhill quickly, and there was a clear reason for it. In September, the Mega Minion was released and instantly garnered a 20% usage rate. And the mini Pekka dropped from 42 down to 30%, but that was only the start. Only 2 weeks later, the roles were reversed. The mini Pekka dropped even further, down to 17%, whereas the Mega Minion rose even further to a staggering 35%. And again, only 2 weeks later, and the Mega Minion absolutely wipes the floor with mini Pekka. At the end of October, Mega Minion was sitting at 54% usage rate, and mini Pekka only at 14%. But what made the Mega Minion so good? Why was it stealing the spotlight from the mini Pekka? Well, the reason the mini Pekka was so reliable and solid on defense is mostly because it couldn't be spelled away. Fireball, poison, heck, even lightning didn't get rid of him. The survivability and his damage output made him exceptional on defense. Barbarians had the damage output but wouldn't survive Fireball. Knight and Valkyrie had the survivability, but their damage wasn't that great compared to mini Pekka. The only other troop similar to mini Pekka was the Lumberjack back in June, but he didn't pose much of a threat. The Mega Minion, however, did everything I just described the mini Pekka doing for one less elixir. And not only was it one less elixir, but it could also fly, meaning that it would avoid way more attacks and troops. It was also out of reach for the log, which had started to become very popular. The Mega Minion was so meta that people started calling it the Meta Minion. And just to show you how much it replaced the mini Pekka, it also literally garnered the nickname Flying Mini Pekka. Yeah, it was painful for our little pancake-loving guy. Mega Minion had surged to the top of the popularity rankings as the most popular support troop by far. The flying machine had an insanely high effective DPS, one-shotting most small troops, and was also beefy enough to soak a fireball and keep on swinging. It had reached an outrageous 86% usage on top ladder, and the arrival of the Mega Minion plus the rise of cards like Skeleton Army made it hard for mini Pekka to thrive. And for the first time ever, he actually faded away from the meta a little. And by the end of 2016, it wasn't just a little anymore. He was completely gone from top ladder, sitting at a 0% usage rate. Completely replaced by the Mega Minion, but don't even worry because this is just the beginning of the story. For about 2 months, the mini Pekka was nowhere to be seen in top ladder. This was until the Executioner was released. This guy was absolutely broken on release, and players needed a reliable way to counter him. And so the mini Pekka did just that. You see, Mega Minion couldn't quite tank hits like mini Pekka. Sure, it could survive fireballs, but the Executioner was a little too much for him. Mini Pekka surged to an astounding 20%, but with several nerfs to the Executioner, he became less and less of a threat, which meant the mini Pekka didn't quite have the same amount of value anymore. And the numbers heavily reflected that. The usage rate quickly went down, and by the time June of 2017 hit the timeline, the mini Pekka sat at a 0% usage rate once more. The Mega Minion was still doing pretty solid at about 30% usage rate, and it seems the Knight had become a very popular mini tank. This is probably due to the rise of the now iconic log bait, but back in 2017, this was a brand new way of playing. The release of the Goblin Gang only a few months before birthed this archetype. Log bait revolves around baiting out out spells from your enemy and quickly cycling back to your goblin barrels and princesses to get maximum value. So to defend, you'd need the cheapest card that would still get the job done, and that would be the Knight, not Mini Pekka. In August of 2017, the Mini Pekka finally got some love yet again. His damage was increased by 4.6%, and of course that might sound small on paper, but it completely changed almost every interaction he had in the arena. Suddenly he could one-shot musketeers, electro wizards, and regular wizards, which was a massive deal. Those were some of the most common defensive troops in the game, and now Mini Pekka could delete them in a single swing. This buff was exactly what he needed to become relevant again. For months he had been sitting on the sidelines while other cards took over, but with that extra damage he started feeling like the old Mini Pekka again. Dangerous, threatening, and actually worth the 4 elixir. And the numbers showed it immediately. In September, just 1 month after the buff, Mini Pekka reached a 14% usage rate at the top of ladder. But the craziest part isn't even that number, it's the jump. He went from 0.5% usage the month before, all the way up to 14% overnight. That's not just a small comeback, that's a full revival. Players realized that the Mini Pekka was back to being a real win condition stopper and a genuine threat if you ignored him even for a second. After almost disappearing from the meta, this buff brought the Pancake boy right back into the spotlight. We saw the Mini Pekka slowly return to giant decks, and a lot of players were genuinely happy to have him back in the meta. By the end of 2017, the most popular archetype wasn't giant at all. It was Hog Control, especially the version made famous by Surgical Goblin. Surgical Goblin, one of the best players in the world at the time, showed just how strong this deck could be against almost any matchup. He used it everywhere from ladder to grand challenges and top-level tournaments, proving it wasn't just a fun deck, but a seriously consistent one. The core of Hog Rider, Ice Golem, and Mini Pekka, and Ice Spirit created a perfect balance. You had cheap cycle, strong defense, and constant pressure on offense. Mini Pekka was a huge part of what made the deck work. He could shut down tanks, punish overcommitments, and then immediately turn into a counterpush behind the Hog. The Ice Golem and Ice Spirit gave him just enough support to reach the tower, and suddenly the card that had almost disappeared a year earlier was back in one of the strongest decks in the game. It kind of reminds me of the early 2.9 trifecta deck from 2016. The structure's almost the same when you think about it. Both decks revolved around Hog Rider as the main win condition, backed up by a cheap cycle and strong defensive core. Trifecta used Valkyrie and Musketeer to control the ground, while the 2017 version replaced that with Ice Golem and Mini Pekka. But the idea was the same: get positive elixir trades on defense and keep pressuring and outcycling your opponent with the Hog Rider. Even the support spells played a similar role. Back then you had Poison and Zap controlling swarms and support troops, and in Surgical Goblin's deck you saw the same concept with Fireball and Log. The Ice Spirit basically took the job the old Zap used to do, resetting targets and creating just enough space for the Hog to sneak through, and the Fireball was there for more instant damage on things like a cannon or barbarians. And just like Trifecta, it was all about perfect defenses and slowly chipping the tower down, while the Mini Pekka cleaned up everything expensive for a positive elixir trade. Similar to Trifecta, but with Mini Pekka it was slightly different. Overall, the Hog Control deck revolutionized the meta and became a favorite among top players. Unfortunately, it didn't take long for the Mini Pekka to fade into obscurity yet again. Even though 2018 started off pretty positively for him, things never really stuck. In January of 2018, Mini Pekka received another huge buff. His HP was increased by 7%, and that might not sound crazy, but in actual gameplay, it changed a ton of interactions. Most cards now needed to hit him one extra time to take him down, and even Sparky could no longer one-shot him. That alone was massive, because Sparky had always been one of his biggest counters. You could see the difference immediately. It made him feel way more durable and forgiving to use. But despite such a huge positive balance update, the Mini Pekka just couldn't reclaim his old glory. Across all levels, he hovered around 3% usage rate, which was shockingly low for a card that had just received one of the biggest buffs of the year. Now, the Mini Pekka wasn't dead at this point, but I wouldn't say he was very viable. 2018 was the year of 3 Musketeer Beatdown, Log Bait, and Expo, and the Mini Pekka struggled heavily to find any real place in that meta. This screenshot from March of 2018 pretty much tells the whole story. You don't need to guess why his usage rate stayed low, it's just there in the numbers. I could talk for hours about this meta, so let me know if I should. But in short, the top cards explained everything. Three Musketeers and Elixir Collector was sitting at huge usage rates, showing just how dominant Three Musketeer beatdown was at the time. And then you've got Pekka, Battle Ram, and Bandit all near the top, which tells us that bridge spam decks were absolutely everywhere. On the other side, Goblin Gang, Princess, and Goblin Barrel point to Logbait becoming one of the most popular archetypes in the game. And Expo was rising fast too. You can see it climbing alongside Skeletons, Archers, and Ice Spirit, the core of these classic defensive cycle decks. All of these strategies had one thing in common. They didn't really need Mini Pekka. Then, down at the bottom of the list, there he is, Mini Pekka sitting at 6% and slowly getting even lower. In a meta ruled by swarms and fast cycle, the Pancake boy just couldn't keep up. It was a sad year for the Mini Pekka. He never really found his place in the meta. He was used every now and then, but hearing Pancakes in the arena became a pretty rare occurrence. This continued all the way through 2018 and into 2019, when finally a small glimmer of hope appeared. Now, I do need to make something really clear here because this is where a lot of people get confused. When I talk about the Mini Pekka being dead or having low usage, I'm talking specifically about top ladder and competitive play, not casual matches. In normal ladder ranges, the Mini Pekka, like a lot of other so-called bad cards, was still completely viable and sometimes even felt overpowered. Casual play is a totally different world. Decks are less optimized, levels are uneven, and players don't always have perfect counters ready. In that environment, a 4-elixir troop that hits like a truck is terrifying. If you were around 4,000 trophies or lower back then, you probably still saw Mini Pekka all the time, deleting giants, hog riders, and random pushes with one swing. So if you remember him being popular in your games, trust me, you're not remembering wrong. He wasn't meta at top level play. Because at the very top of the game, where everyone had max cards and perfectly built decks, things were different. Pros cared about tiny interactions and oftentimes cycle speed, not just raw damage. And in that environment, the Mini Pekka just didn't offer enough compared to other options. That's why his usage rate looked terrible in the stats, even though millions of regular players were still using him every day. It's for the same reason that the Mega Knight is so annoying to the majority of players, but top players think it's a bad card that can easily be countered. In July of 2019, a balancing update gave the Mini Pekka a pretty interesting buff. His range was increased from 1.05 tiles to 1.2. Officially classifying him as a melee medium troop. And that might sound like a tiny change, but in actual gameplay, it meant he could engage troops a little sooner and, most importantly, counter Hog Rider much more consistently than before. And this really seemed to be a big deal. The idea was that the extra reach would help him compete with other tank killers in the meta, especially with cards like Lumberjack that were filling a similar role. A slightly longer range meant fewer awkward moments where the Hog would sneak in an extra hit and better interactions against things like Battle Ram and Bandit. So you'd expect this to have a noticeable impact on his usage rate, right? A solid buff, better matchups, clearer role in the game. Surely the Mini Pekka would start climbing again. Well, not really. The stats barely moved. There was no major jump in usage or win rate, and for most players, the buff didn't really feel like enough to bring him back into the spotlight. The meta at the time was still dominated by faster cycle decks and swarm-heavy strategies, and a slightly longer sword didn't suddenly fix all of his problems. But in 2020, we did see the Mini Pekka come back again. With the introduction of the Firecracker, new Hog Rider decks started emerging. And by now, it's pretty clear that the Mini Pekka can serve a great role in Hog decks, and the Mini Pekka had become quite popular, and some even considered him too strong. And so the Mini Pekka's dominance didn't last long. In the exact same month his usage rate peaked, Supercell stepped in with a heavy-handed change. His range was cut from 1.2 tiles all the way back down to 0.8, turning him from melee medium into melee short. And that might sound like a tiny number, but this was pretty brutal. Suddenly, even the regular Pekka could land the first hit on her smaller, supposedly faster son. Hog Riders that used to get shut down at the bridge now slipped through unless your timing was frame perfect or you did a risky prediction. Against Ram Rider, even messing up slightly would result in her charging onto your tower with your Mini Pekka being snared by the Rider's attack. The range nerf also solved two problems for Supercell, one being that the mini Pekka was everywhere, and the second being his long swing having some unintended interactions like we addressed earlier in this video. But for players who loved him, it felt like the card lost part of its identity overnight. Later in 2020, he got a small buff. His hit speed was reduced from 1.8 seconds to 1.7, it seems nice but barely noticeable in reality. Mini Pekka stayed decent, totally viable, but no longer special or meta-defining. The November snapshot showed him sitting around 6% usage, respectable, yet miles away from his earlier glory. One of the few places he still shined was in Hog Rider control decks, with Princess and Rocket. That deck was built to survive the nightmare meta of the time, Lava Loon, Expo, Logbait, and in the hands of pros like Simple, it looked unstoppable. Watching him dismantle match after match almost made you believe Mini Pekka was back. The constant pressure made it hard for the Lava Loon player to ever get a push started, and with the Rocket in your hands, the Expo didn't stand a chance. Now, I have to give mention to one of the coolest events Clash Royale has ever done. In July of 2021, Clash Royale launched the Super Mini Pekka Challenge, and it was pure chaos in the best way imaginable. Players got a special 5 elixir Mini Pekka that could one-shot every troop in the game, and to make it even more ridiculous, he was healed by falling pancakes during battle. The mode forced everyone to rethink their decks. You either built around this unstoppable monster or desperately tried to counter it. Matches turned into hilarious chaotic games with these Super Mini Pekka bulldozing entire pushes and somehow staying alive due to all those pancakes dropping from the sky. It was goofy, overpowered, and for once, pancakes was more than just a voice line.
Connects on the tower. The Super Mini Pekka's dead. How is that alive? Connect.
But since then, the Mini Pekka wouldn't see any big relevancy. That was until the start of 2023, right after the Phoenix and Monk meta. A quick shout out has to go to Ian77, who absolutely dominated the game with his Hog Rocket Cycle deck, even reaching the top spot with it. One card he constantly highlights and praises is the Mini Pekka. It's clear he has a real love for the little guy and understands just how much impact he can have when played right. Mini Pekka stayed a solid and viable card, even as the evolution update shook up the meta in June of 2023. While Evo Firecracker and Evo Barbarians dominated early on as defensive cards, Mini Pekka held steady at around 5% usage rate. Everything changed though with the introduction of Evo Knight, a nearly unstoppable tank. Mini Pekka became a perfect counter, and by October, his usage in Grand Challenge climbed to 11%, especially in decks like Giant Sparky or Goblin Giant Sparky, where his single target damage shined on both offense and defense. The 2024 meta saw more balance changes and for new tower troops like Cannoneer and Dagger Duchess, but Mini Pekka survived without drastic swings in usage. He remained a niche but reliable choice, with a usage rate around 5.4% among top players, proving he wasn't extinct. When giant decks took over in April due to the insane dominance of the Dagger Duchess, Mini Pekka became a key piece in top ladder decks, pairing well with Evo Knight and Evo Bomber for unstoppable defensive and counter push potential. By January of 2025, Mini Pekka had received a 5% damage buff, and it immediately increased his viability in the top ladder meta. One of the most important changes was that he could now one-shot wizards once again. By the way, the wizard got a health increase, so it became the one card Mini Pekka couldn't one-shot anymore. Anyway, this was particularly relevant at the time because Evo Wizard made Wizard a lot more common. This interaction made Mini Pekka a strong counter to these high-value troops, helping to offset some of the pressure from Royal Chef decks and other combinations that relied on durable support units. Ian77 also mentions that Mini Pekka has always been a reliable and versatile card. Unlike static buildings, he contributes on both defense and offense. You can drop him to shut down a Hog Rider or Goblin Giant push, then immediately follow up with the counter push that forces your opponent to overcommit Elixir. Even if he's not dominating the meta, Mini Pekka constantly finds places in decks, providing value every time he's played. This balance of defensive power and offensive potential is exactly why he's remained relevant through 2025, and why players like Ian77 continued to champion him as a cornerstone of top ladder strategy. Throughout the rest of 2025, Mini Pekka remained reliable and versatile, maintaining his role as a solid pick in top ladder decks. September brought a challenging meta, dominated by Evo Baby Dragon inside Golem decks, which made life difficult for many cards. But the Mini Pekka actually benefited from this environment. He fit seamlessly into the Golem archetype, and the speed boost from Evo Baby Dragon made his pushes even more threatening. Suddenly, a well-timed mini Pekka behind a Golem could punish opponents heavily, combining high single-target damage with the momentum of a tank push, proving once again that even in tough metas, he could still shine. For nearly 10 years, a whole decade, this little card has stolen the hearts of players everywhere. His cute demeanor, the iconic voice line, and the way he waddled across the arena made him an instant fan favorite. But November of 2025 brought a chilling revelation. Something heroic was coming. When Heroes arrived in December of 2025 alongside level 16, Mini Pekka was completely reimagined as a hero card, and not in a subtle way. Unlike other heroes, his ability didn't activate instantly. Instead, he passively charged a bar over time, up to 5, gaining half a bar whenever he hit anything. And when you activated it, he instantly scaled up to multiple levels depending on how much charge he had stored, while also healing 40% of the damage he had taken. Suddenly, the little defensive powerhouse we all knew could bank power before fights, spike multiple levels, heal through damage, and turn routine defenses into massive counter pushes, all for just 1 elixir. The passive nature of the ability meant that there was almost no risk. You weren't committing to anything, yet when you cashed it in, it became a temporary win condition by default. The issue was worse than just power. The hero Mini Pekka was locked behind the Clash Royale paywall, making him a heavy pay-to-win card. On top of that, his ability was extremely obnoxious and overpowered, completely changing the way the card worked and breaking the delicate balance that made the Mini Pekka so beloved. What had once been a cute, reliable tank killer became frustrating and intimidating, the kind of card that could single-handedly ruin a push if you weren't prepared. But it wasn't just that he could ruin a push. If we're being honest, the regular Mini Pekka already kinda did that. The hero Mini Pekka became absolutely stupid after defending. When the hero Mini Pekka had been going crazy on defense, it meant he had already charged up that bar that lets him level up, and suddenly he was ready to become a full counter push by himself. The 5 levels he could gain were definitely insane, but that probably wasn't even the most frustrating part. It was the healing. The ability to heal 40% of his health with only 1 elixir, no matter the bar change, made him terrifying. It added this awful surprise factor. A Mini Pekka that looked basically dead would suddenly jump up back to half HP and get damage on your tower if you didn't react in time. What used to be a normal defense suddenly forced you to overcommit just to survive. And we saw how overpowered he was within just the first few weeks of release. Ken was playing an extremely cheap deck that pretty much revolved around spamming the hero Mini Pekka as much as possible. But that's Ken, he'll try to make any strategy work. So was it really the Mini Pekka? Well, yeah, kinda. I mean, Ken wasn't the only one doing it. InShane was also uploading videos using several hero Mini Pekka decks that were 2 elixir or less, and those videos really showed just how broken the card was. The entire game plan was basically cycle fast, defend once, press the ability, and let a single troop take over the match. There was also a creator tournament right before the heroes were released where creators got to try them out early. The event had teams of 3 and each team was assigned a different hero to play with, and it just so happened that Team Hero Mini Pekka won the whole thing. Now, I admit, they literally had Mo Light on their team, and Juicy J isn't just any content creator, he used to be a pro player as well, so yeah, the lineup was stacked. But still, I think it at least shows something important. The hero Mini Pekka was genuinely strong. Supercell has since toned him down a little, and with new broken heroes being added each month, he'll become less broken relatively. Right now, the healing is less extreme and his bar charges a little slower, which means he no longer dominates the meta in the same way, but the damage was already done. The hero Mini Pekka left a lasting mark on the card's legacy, and for many players, Mini Pekka isn't just a loved troop anymore. He's a reminder of a time when a beloved little card was made unrecognizably powerful and frustrating, changing the way people perceive him forever. It's honestly crazy they didn't just give the Mini Pekka an evolution. That is something I would get behind, but there are a lot of cards that received an evolution, and surprisingly, they've got some pretty interesting lore. Seriously, check out this video next to learn all about them, and I'll see you there.